For this one, we're looking at Alchemy by Rory Sutherland, and we try to pull out some of the big ideas to make you just a little bit smarter. So the book is all about this idea that the world is not always as logical as we think it is. And maybe that's a good thing. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's really about those hidden forces that shape our decisions and the things that make us tick, even when we think we're being completely rational. Like it or not, our choices are often influenced by factors we're not even aware of.
And businesses are definitely tapping into that.
Yep.
So let's jump right in with an example we can probably all relate to: train travel.
Okay.
Say the goal is to make trains faster. Seems logical, right?
Yeah.
Get people where they need to go quicker.
Yeah, on the surface, it makes perfect sense, right? But what about the passenger experience? I mean, yeah, a faster train might save a few minutes, but if it means being crammed into uncomfortable seats, staring at a blank wall the whole time.
Makes those few minutes feel like an eternity.
Exactly. And that's where understanding human psychology comes in.
So?
Instead of just focusing on speed, we could focus on making the journey itself more enjoyable. Think comfy seats, better amenities, maybe even some scenic views along the way.
See, that's already sounding better.
Right. It's about recognizing that people's perceptions and emotions are like a huge part of how they actually experience something like train travel. They're not robots.
I mean, think about it. You go to a restaurant.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just about the food on your plate, right? It's the whole experience, the atmosphere, the service. Would you rather have an amazing meal in a dingy place
Right.
with rude waiters,
Yeah.
or just an okay meal somewhere that makes you feel good?
Yeah. It's the same principle. Sometimes the most effective solutions are the ones that don't immediately seem obvious. Sometimes even the ones that seem a little irrational.
Okay, now I get it.
Yeah.
Now let's talk about framing.
Yeah.
It's amazing how a simple change in how we say something can totally change how we see it, right?
Right, right.
Like, you see those yogurt labels that say like 90% fat-free
Right.
versus 10% fat.
It's the same yogurt.
It's the same yogurt.
But our brain just reacts differently. 90% fat-free sounds, healthy and appealing, whereas 10% fat suddenly makes you think about the negative.
It's wild. Our minds are so easily influenced.
They are. And this framing thing, it pops up everywhere. I mean, think about the Royal Mail in the UK. They once got rid of the price on their stamps and replaced it with a more abstract design.
So it still costs the same to mail a letter.
Yep, exactly the same. But get this, by removing the price tag, people, they started to see the stamps as more valuable, more premium.
It's like they were saying, our stamps are too good for numbers.
Yeah, precisely. And it worked. People were happy to pay the same price for something that felt more special, more exclusive.
Huh. That's so interesting. I wonder if our listeners have ever encountered like a similar framing trick, something that made them rethink a purchase.
Yeah.
Let us know, because I'm sure we've all fallen for these things.
Oh, all the time. Buy one, get one free. It's basic math, right? It's the same as a 50% discount. But our brains just light up when we hear that word. Free.
We all love a good deal.
We do. It just goes to show that it's not always about cold, hard logic. It's how our brains perceive and process that information that really matters.
So it's more about psychology than logic sometimes.
Yeah. Sometimes the most effective solutions are the ones that play on our psychology, even if they don't make perfect logical sense.
All right, I'm starting to see the world in a whole new way. But what about all those unseen influences that are at play? Have you ever noticed how, like, just the sound of a car door closing can totally affect how you feel about the car?
Oh, for sure. You mean like a solid thud
Yeah.
versus that flimsy kind of tinny sound?
Yeah, exactly.
Those luxury car manufacturers, they really put a lot of thought into that. They engineer their doors to make a specific sound when they close. A sound that screams quality and solidity.
So even if the car's actual safety is the same.
Exactly. It's all about creating that perception. I mean, think about it. Those closed door buttons and elevators, they don't actually do anything a lot of the time.
No way.
Yeah. They're just there to give us this feeling of control, even though it's an illusion.
Oh, wow.
But we all fall for it. Because when we feel like we have some control, we get a little less impatient. We feel a little bit better.
It's funny how these small things can make a difference. Sometimes just going into a situation expecting something good or bad can affect how you see it too, right?
Absolutely. Like if you go to a restaurant and you've heard amazing things about it, even if the food is not absolutely perfect, you might not even notice because your expectations are so high.
Yeah, our brains kind of set us up for the experience we're expecting, so mindset really matters.
Oh, it totally does. And businesses, they know this. They know that creating a positive expectation can be just as important as the actual thing they're selling.
Makes sense. Okay, let's shift gears a little and talk about signaling. It's this interesting idea where people use little cues to kind of say something about themselves, you know? Like it's not about directly proving something, it's more about implying it through what you do or what you have.
Yeah, yeah.
It's like the classic example is like uh, a luxury watch, right? A Rolex. It
Ah,
doesn't necessarily tell time better than a cheaper watch,
right.
but it signals something about the person wearing it.
Status, wealth, maybe even a sense of style or taste,
And we're
right?
us.
People are paying for that image, not just for the watch itself.
And signaling is everywhere,
Yeah.
from the clothes we wear
Oh,
to
yeah.
the cars we drive to our homes, even.
It's like this unspoken language that we use to communicate with the world.
So how can we use this knowledge to make smarter choices?
By understanding it, being aware of the signals we're sending out, but also being aware of how others might be using signaling to influence us. You have to be on guard a little so you don't get sucked in.
That's a good point. Now let's move on to brands. Why is it that we stick with certain brands, even when there are like cheaper options out there? What's the psychology behind that?
I think a lot of it comes down to trust. You know, brands give us this sense of familiarity, consistency. It makes decision making easier in a world that's just overloaded with choices. Think about it. Would you rather buy a generic painkiller or one you recognize?
Yeah, probably the one I know. Even if it's just in my head, it feels safer somehow.
Exactly. We associate brands with reliability, and sometimes it's a placebo effect. Like we believe it works better because we trust the brand.
Speaking of the placebo effect, there's this study where they gave people the same drink, but told one group it was way more expensive.
Yeah, and the people who thought they were drinking the expensive drink performed better on cognitive tests.
Whoa, seriously?
Yeah, seriously, just believing it was a premium product made a difference.
That's wild. So are businesses using this placebo effect on purpose?
I mean, they can, ethically, of course. It's all about enhancing the experience,
Hmm.
you know, creating this aura of value that goes beyond the actual product itself. It could be the packaging, the store environment, even having nice, attentive staff.
It's about exceeding expectations.
Right. And sometimes going for a simpler approach works too. Believe it or not, constraints can actually boost creativity.
Wait, are you saying limitations can be a good thing?
Yeah. Think about Twitter. Their original character limit forced people to be way more concise, way more creative with their messaging.
And that led to hashtags and all that.
Exactly. Or think about handcrafted goods. They're often imperfect, right?
Yeah.
But those imperfections give them character.
Yeah.
They make them feel unique, like you're not just getting something mass produced.
That's the beauty of the handmade.
Yeah. And sometimes that imperfection, it actually increases the value. Like limited edition products, people want them more because they're scarce, they're exclusive.
So limitations can actually make something more valuable.
Yeah. Context is key,
Yeah.
right?
Okay, explain that one. How does context change things?
Okay. Think about this. You order a glass of wine for $10 at a baseball game.
Okay.
That seems like a normal price. But that same glass of wine at a fancy restaurant might feel overpriced. It's the same wine.
It's just where you're drinking it.
Exactly. Or, check this out, menus. They often put a really, really expensive item at the top,
Mhm.
not because they expect you to buy it, but it makes everything else look more reasonable. It's called anchoring. They're setting a reference point that changes how you see the other prices.
Huh. So even the order they list things in affects how we see it.
Yeah, totally.
Uh,
So we really need to be aware of these contextual cues and how they can nudge us in certain directions. You have to be a smart consumer
Yeah.
because value is relative, right? It's not like some set in stone thing.
Okay, that makes sense. It's all about perception.
It really is.
And I guess sometimes even a little bit of playfulness and weirdness can be effective. Like, I remember reading in the book about Rory's idea of having supermodels serve free drinks on train.
Oh, yeah, that's a classic.
So out there, right? But I guess it speaks to that desire for something a little more than just basic functionality. People want to be entertained, surprised.
Right. It's that element of surprise, of delight that we crave. It makes things more memorable, more enjoyable, like that. Compare the Meerkat ad campaign. Remember that one?
Oh, yeah. It was for insurance, wasn't it?
Yeah. Such a weird ad, but it went viral.
Yeah.
People loved it. And it boosted their sales like crazy.
It was memorable. It was funny. It stood out from all the other boring ads.
Exactly. It tapped into that need for novelty, for something different.
It's like Red Bull. The taste isn't exactly great,
No.
but somehow it adds to their mystique.
Yeah, right. It makes it feel more more authentic, more edgy, I guess.
So sometimes weirdness works.
Yeah, it definitely can. Sometimes the most effective solutions are the ones that don't make perfect sense on paper, but just feel right.
All right, so we've talked about perception, context, and even a bit of weirdness. But let's get real for a second. Pricing. At the end of the day, it's all about how much something costs, right?
Well, yeah, but pricing is way more about psychology than just numbers.
Okay.
I mean, smart businesses, they get that. It's about understanding how people perceive value and using that to influence their decisions. It's like charm pricing, for example. $9.99 instead of $10.
We've all fallen for that one.
Of course, that 1 cent difference, it makes the price seem way lower because our brains just latch onto that first digit.
It's crazy how those little psychological tricks work.
Or how about this? You see something on sale. Was $100, now $50.
Yeah?
Discounts, they trigger this sense of urgency, makes us feel like we're getting a steal even if the original price was already marked up.
Yeah. We love a good bargain.
We do. And then there's the magic word, free.
Ooh, free. I mean, that just makes you want to buy something.
Right. Buy one, get one free. Mathematically, it's the same as 50% off.
But free just sounds better.
It does. And then there's the decoy effect. Have you heard of that one?
I don't think so.
Okay, so picture this. You're at the movies, and they're selling popcorn. You got your small for $4, your medium for $7, and your large for $8. Which one are you picking?
I'm going for the large. Seems like the best deal.
Exactly. But that medium size,
Yeah.
it's a decoy. It's there to make the large seem like a way better deal, even though you might have been perfectly happy with the small if the medium wasn't an option.
So sneaky.
But smart.
Right. It just shows how the context of the choices can really influence what we end up picking.
So pricing is all about understanding our psychology.
It really is. It's about presenting those prices in a way that appeals to our emotions, not just our logic.
Okay, makes sense. So at the end of the day, why do we buy the things we do? Is it just about their function? Or is there something more going on?
Well, think about it. People don't just buy products. They buy into stories, emotions, identities. Like take Apple, for example. They've created this whole brand that represents creativity, innovation, a certain kind of lifestyle. And people buy their products not just because of what the products do, but for what they say about them.
It's like they're buying into a tribe almost. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. And it's not just tech companies. Think about like high-end fashion brands, luxury watches, or Patagonia. They're not just selling clothes. They're selling a commitment to sustainability.
So it's about aligning with a certain set of values.
Exactly. It's about buying into something that makes you feel good about yourself, that tells a story about who you are or who you want to be.
I guess we're all drawn to a good story.
We are. And sometimes the best stories are told through the simplest things. Like, remember that example in the book about those slow elevators?
Oh, remind me.
Instead of spending a ton of money to upgrade the elevators,
Yeah?
they put up mirrors.
Eh,
Complaints went way down. People were distracted. They didn't notice the weight as much.
that's so clever.
Right. Or have you heard of the fly in the urinal trick?
No.
So at the Schiphol airport in Amsterdam, they etched a little image of a fly in each urinal.
Okay.
And guess what? Guys instinctively aimed at it.
Oh. To reduce spillage.
Exactly. Mess went down significantly.
Wow. Sometimes the simplest solutions are the best.
Totally. It just goes to show that we don't always need some super complicated solution to solve a problem. A small, human-centered tweak can sometimes be all it takes.
It's all about understanding how we humans tick.
It really is. And that, my friend, is the magic of alchemy.
Hmm.
It really is. And it all comes back to the idea that sometimes the most effective solutions are the ones that don't necessarily rely on pure logic.
Right. It's about understanding those hidden forces that shape our perceptions and our behaviors, even when we think we're being totally rational.
Exactly. Like, take social influence, for example. We're constantly being influenced by the people around us, whether we realize it or not.
It's true. I've heard that saying, you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with.
Yeah, there's a lot of truth to that. We tend to pick up the habits, beliefs, even the spending habits of those in our circle.
So if all my friends are buying the latest iPhone, I'm more likely to feel like I need one too.
It's very possible. It's called social proof, and it's a powerful force, especially in marketing. Think about all those online reviews and testimonials. We're more likely to buy something if we see that other people have had good experiences with it. It's like we're looking to the crowd for validation.
That's like a shortcut, right?
Mhm.
Makes decision-making easier when you're overwhelmed with choices.
Exactly. And marketers, they know this. They use it to their advantage all the time. Think about those limited quantities available messages.
Oh yeah, they make it sound like you'll miss out if you don't buy now.
Exactly. It creates a sense of urgency and scarcity. Like, everybody else is buying this, so you better hurry up.
So how do we resist this? How do we make sure we're not just following the crowd?
By thinking critically, by questioning our assumptions. Just because something is popular doesn't mean it's right for us.
Right, it's about making choices that align with our own values and needs, not just blindly following trends.
Exactly. And, one of the most powerful ways businesses can connect with consumers is by tapping into their sense of purpose. Like, they're not just selling a product, they're selling a mission, a set of values.
Like TMS shoes, for example.
Yeah, exactly. Or Patagonia. They've built their brands around social and environmental responsibility.
Right. It's not just about the shoes or the jackets. It's about making a difference.
Precisely. They're appealing to that desire to be part of something bigger than ourselves, to feel like our purchases are contributing to a greater good.
And it's not just about consumer products either. This applies to any business or organization. People want to feel like their work has meaning, that they're making a positive impact.
It's about finding that sweet spot where our skills and passions intersect with a greater purpose.
It's about feeling good about what we do and who we work for.
Exactly. And that sense of purpose, it's a powerful motivator. It can lead to greater job satisfaction and even better performance.
Okay, I'm sold.
Yeah.
But how do we cultivate this sense of purpose in our own lives?
By reflecting on our values, by identifying what we're passionate about and seeking out opportunities that align with those things. It could be volunteering, supporting a cause, or even just bringing more intention to our daily work.
It's about finding what matters to us and making it a priority.
Exactly. And, another important insight from Alchemy is the power of simplicity.
Keep it simple, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
We tend to overcomplicate things. We search for these complex solutions when oftentimes the simplest approach is actually the most effective.
Like those fly in the urinal examples we were talking about earlier.
Yeah, exactly. A simple visual cue, and they significantly reduced spillage.
Or the mirrors in the slow elevators.
Right. It's amazing how small, simple tweaks can make such a big difference. We don't always need to reinvent the wheel. Sometimes just a minor adjustment is all it takes.
It's about being resourceful and creative, finding those elegant solutions that are often hidden in plain sight.
Exactly. And this applies to everything from product design to problem solving to communication.
So how do we embrace this power of simplicity?
By decluttering, by streamlining, by focusing on the essentials, eliminate distractions and unnecessary steps, and free up more time and energy for the things that really matter.
It's about creating space for what truly matters.
Exactly. And sometimes the best way to find that simplicity is by shifting our perspective, looking at things from a different angle.
It's like you can't see the forest for the trees sometimes.
Exactly. When we're too close to a problem, we can get bogged down in the details and miss the bigger picture. So it's important to step back and look at things from a fresh perspective.
So how do we do that? How do we get that fresh perspective?
By actively seeking out different viewpoints, challenging our own assumptions, and being open to feedback from others. Sometimes the most valuable insights come from unexpected sources.
It's about getting outside of our own heads and our own routines.
Exactly. And sometimes it means embracing the unconventional, the unexpected, the seemingly irrational.
It's about being open to possibilities that we might not have considered before.
Exactly. And remembering that the world is full of surprises. If we're willing to look beyond the surface, we might just discover something truly remarkable.
I love that.
Mm-hmm.
And speaking of remarkable discoveries, let's talk about intuition and gut feelings. We've all heard the advice to trust your gut. But is there any science behind that?
There actually is. You see, our intuition is basically a collection of all those subconscious patterns and experiences that our brains have accumulated over time.
So it's not just some mystical force, it's based on real data.
Exactly. Our brains are always processing information even when we're not consciously aware of it. And sometimes those subconscious insights, they bubble up to the surface in the form of a gut feeling or an intuition.
So how can we get better at trusting our intuition?
By paying attention to those subtle signals and by creating space for reflection and introspection, Our intuition is often drowned out by the noise of our busy lives.
It's about tuning into that inner voice.
Exactly. And it's about being willing to take risks and act on those gut feelings even when we can't fully explain them.
It's about trusting ourselves and our own judgment.
Exactly. And sometimes that means going against conventional wisdom or challenging the status quo, but often those are the ideas that lead to the most innovative and successful outcomes.
It's about being bold and trusting our instincts.
And speaking of instincts, one of the things that drives human behavior is our constant search for novelty and excitement.
We're always looking for the next new thing, the next big adventure.
Exactly. We're wired to crave stimulation and change. And this has huge implications for marketing, product design, personal growth, you name it.
So how can we leverage this? How can we use this desire for novelty to our advantage?
By constantly innovating, by offering new and exciting products and experiences, by creating a sense of anticipation and excitement.
It's about keeping things fresh and engaging.
Exactly. And it's about recognizing that our desire for novelty is a powerful force that can drive innovation and creativity.
So instead of resisting change, we should embrace it. See it as an opportunity for growth and discovery.
Precisely. And on that note, let's talk about our need for connection and belonging. We're social creatures by nature, and we thrive in environments where we feel supported, respected, and valued.
It's true. We all want to feel like we're part of something bigger than ourselves, that we
Yeah.
belong to a community.
Exactly. And this need for connection, it impacts everything from workplace culture to marketing to personal relationships.
So how can we create this sense of belonging in our own lives and in our work?
By fostering inclusive environments, by encouraging open communication, by celebrating individual differences. It's about building strong relationships based on trust, respect, and mutual understanding.
It's about creating a sense of community where everyone feels valued and supported.
Exactly. And when we do that, we create a more positive and productive environment for everyone.
It's a win-win, for sure.
Great.
One of the things I've always found interesting is how much our emotions can influence our decisions, sometimes even leading us to make choices that aren't really in our best interests.
It's true. Emotions are powerful, and they can definitely cloud our judgment sometimes.
So how do we get better at recognizing those emotional biases and making more rational decisions?
Well, the first step is simply acknowledging that emotions play a role in our decision-making. We often try to convince ourselves that we're being completely logical, but that's rarely the case. Our emotions are always influencing our choices to some degree.
So we need to be more honest with ourselves about how we're feeling.
Exactly. And it's also helpful to be aware of the specific emotional biases that can distort our thinking.
Like what? What are some examples?
Well, there's confirmation bias, for example. That's our tendency to seek out information that confirms our existing beliefs, even if that information is wrong.
So if I already believe something, I'm more likely to believe anything that supports that belief, even if there's evidence to the contrary.
Exactly. And that can lead to some pretty bad decisions because we're not considering all of the evidence.
Right. We're just looking for information that fits our narrative.
Precisely. Another common bias is loss aversion. That's the tendency to feel the pain of a loss more strongly than the pleasure of an equivalent gain.
So we're more motivated to avoid losing something than we are to gain something of equal value.
Exactly. And that can make us risk averse even when taking a risk would be the better choice.
It's like we're paralyzed by the fear of loss.
Exactly. And then there's the sunk cost fallacy. That's our tendency to keep investing in something even when it's clearly not working, simply because we've already put time, money, or effort into it.
So we're throwing good money after bad just because we don't want to admit we made a mistake.
Exactly. And that can lead to wasted resources and missed opportunities.
So how do we overcome these biases? How do we make sure our emotions aren't leading us astray?
Awareness is key. Once we know about these biases, we can start to look for them in our own decision-making.
It's about being more mindful and recognizing when our emotions might be clouding our judgment.
Exactly. It's also helpful to seek out objective information and feedback from others. When we're emotionally invested in a decision, it can be hard to see things clearly. Talking to someone who's more objective can help us get a more balanced perspective.
It's like getting a second opinion.
Exactly. And it's important to consider the long-term consequences of our decisions. When we're making decisions based on emotion, we tend to focus on the immediate gratification. But it's important to step back and think about how our decisions will affect us down the road.
Think long-term, not just short-term.
Precisely. And remember, we're not always going to make the perfect decision. We're human. We make mistakes. The important thing is to learn from those mistakes and try to do better next time.
It's all about learning and growing.
Exactly. Exactly. And this principle of pleasure and pain, it's a powerful driver of human behavior. We're always seeking out what feels good and trying to avoid what feels bad.
Makes sense. But it's not always that straightforward, is it?
No, it's not always simple. Our perception of pleasure and pain is subjective. It varies from person to person. What one person finds enjoyable, another person might find completely unbearable.
So it's really about understanding our own individual needs and preferences, what works for us and what doesn't.
Exactly. It's about creating a life that aligns with our values and brings us joy, and finding healthy ways to cope with those inevitable moments of pain and discomfort.
It's about finding that balance between seeking pleasure and managing pain in a way that leads to a fulfilling and meaningful life.
Exactly. You know, another fascinating aspect of human behavior is our love of stories. We're storytelling creatures. We
Hmm.
use stories to make sense of the world around us, to connect with each other, and to inspire and motivate ourselves.
It's true. A good story can stay with you for a lifetime. It can make
Hmm.
you think differently, feel differently, even change your behavior.
Exactly. Stories have this incredible power to transport us to other worlds, to help us understand complex ideas, and to connect with others on a deeper level.
So how can we harness this power of stories in our own lives?
By becoming more mindful of the stories we tell ourselves, the stories we share with others, and the stories that we consume, we can use stories to shape our own beliefs and behaviors, to inspire and motivate those around us, and to create a more meaningful and fulfilling world.
It's about recognizing the power of storytelling and using it intentionally to make a positive impact.
Exactly. And it's about being aware of the stories that are being told around us in the media, in our culture, in our communities, and how those stories might be shaping our perceptions and influencing our choices.
That's a great point. One of the things that I've always found fascinating about human behavior is our relationship with uncertainty. We crave certainty, we want to know what's going to happen next, but the reality is that life is full of surprises,
That's so true. We like to feel in control, but the truth is that we can't control everything. And sometimes that's a good thing.
right? Sometimes the unexpected detours and challenges in life lead to the most incredible discoveries and growth opportunities.
Exactly. It's about learning to embrace uncertainty, to see it as a catalyst for growth and innovation.
So how can we get better at dealing with uncertainty? It can be so unsettling sometimes.
Well, one key is to cultivate a growth mindset that embraces challenges and sees setbacks as opportunities for learning. It's also important to be open to new experiences and to trust our intuition even when we don't have all the answers.
It's about letting go of that need to control every outcome and trusting that even if things don't go according to plan, we'll be able to adapt and learn from the experience.
Exactly. It's about having faith in ourselves and our ability to navigate the unknown.
That's a great reminder.
Yeah.
Throughout this deep dive, we've explored so many fascinating aspects of human behavior, from the power of perception to the importance of context to the role of emotions in our decision making.
It's been quite a journey, and I think what ties all these insights together is the understanding that we are all complex emotional beings. Our choices and behaviors are influenced by a myriad of factors, many of which operate below the level of our conscious awareness.
It's about recognizing that we're not always as rational as we think we are, and that's okay.
Exactly. In fact, embracing that irrationality, that emotional side of ourselves, is often what leads to the most creative and innovative solutions.
It's about understanding how our minds work so that we can make more informed decisions, create more effective marketing campaigns, and ultimately live more fulfilling and meaningful lives.
Exactly. It's about using this knowledge to our advantage to navigate the complexities of the human experience with more awareness, more intention, and more compassion.
It's about understanding ourselves and each other a little bit better.
Well said. I think that's a great takeaway from our exploration of alchemy.
And that's a wrap for this deep dive into the fascinating world of human behavior. Big thanks to you for sharing your insights and expertise. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks for having me. I always enjoy these conversations.
And to all of our listeners out there, thank you for joining us. We hope you've learned something new about yourselves and the world around you. Remember to keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep learning. We'll see you on the next deep dive.